Everyone. My name is Sichama Mutsielwa. I'm from the Speakers Firm. Welcome and thank you for choosing to join the Empower Entrepreneurs Digital Conversations, the COVID-19 discussion hosted by EmpowerWorks. A very special welcome to our keynote speaker, Honorable Minister Thulas Nxesi, Minister of Employment and Labor. We have a broad representation of stakeholders joining us directly via Zoom, and they will post their questions directly on the chat box. There will be a Q&A at the end of the keynote, and we will respond to as many of the questions as possible. To get a direct invite to the next talk tomorrow, Friday, the 15th of May, 2020, by Bilis Silakani, an international professional inspirational speaker, author, and a businessman, please go to our WhatsApp number 082 088 5262 or visit the EmpowerWorks website, and where you will also get information around empowerment, empower women, empower youth, the Speakers Firm, leadership summits, and events. We are live on the following EmpowerWorks digital platforms: YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and the hashtag that we've been following for these conversations is hashtag Empower Entrepreneurs. Yeah, we are looking forward to hearing from you, Minister, how the department is addressing the needs of the workforce, as well as those who are unemployed during this time of COVID-19 and the lockdown. Indeed, COVID-19 has changed the world. Over to you, Honorable Minister Thulas Nxesi, Minister of Employment and Labor.
Thank you, Chapa. Thank you very much. And as a program director, our host, the digital colleagues and the entrepreneurs, thank you for inviting me to participate in this platform. This engagement takes place at a critical time in the history of our country and the world for that matter. And we struggle to contain, or as we struggle to contain the spread of the coronavirus in order to buy time to prepare for the extended pandemic. Hence, the severe lockdown and the gradual risk-adjusted move into level 4, the beginning of the return to work. I think everybody agrees that the economic consequences of the global pandemic and the lockdown are very serious, with a projected contraction of 3% of the global economy for 2020, 6% specifically for South Africa. And according to that's what the Reserve Bank is telling us, they will produce an unemployment rate of 32.5%. That's the narrow definition in South Africa by the end of 2020. So if you're talking about an expanded definition, it might even go to above 40%. It's vital that all measures be taken to minimize the job losses. The government priorities in taking various health and economic measures in response to the pandemic, they include the following: to slow the spread of the virus, to keep our people safe and prepare the infrastructure, the field hospitals, the PPEs, hygiene, social distancing, and increased awareness, and change behavior to arm ourselves to combat this particular pandemic. And to provide also the social security net and the income support for those who are now unable to make a living, and to provide limited resources to assist the companies to survive the lockdown. Let me emphasize this particular point, Chaba and the colleagues. With limited resources, we're seeking to develop a safety net. Government cannot meet every demand, e.g. the demand for government to pay full wages during the lockdown is unrealistic. This does not happen even in the most industrialized or developed countries. And most importantly, for this gathering, government is also planning now for the post-lockdown period of the economic reconstruction. So the direction is towards an incremental, risk-adjusted survival of economic activity while maintaining safeguards against the spread of the virus. Any proposed plans for economic reconstruction will be fully consulted in due course with the social partners, a commitment made by the president last night. NETLEC, which is the National Economic Development and Labour Council, will play an important role in facilitating this process. And whilst we're still talking about next week, and the president has given the command, NETLEC is sitting tomorrow. But clearly things will not simply return to what was considered the normal in the past. I think the colleagues and the comrades, you have heard the phrases being used. No going back, things can never be the same. Prepare for the new normal. Indeed, the former MP, Jeremy Cronin, who was the deputy minister last week, published an article in the Daily Maverick entitled, "There is no going back." But where are we going to? That's what he was asking. And that is the conversation we are all going to have, to engage in the coming weeks and months. Some things are already clear. Some sectors will be hit very hard, and some businesses will not be coming back. The CCMA has received some 200 Section 189, 189A applications for retrenchment. And mostly these are from the small businesses. This is really tragic, both for the businesses and the employees. So as the Department of Employment and Labor, together with our entities, the CCMA, Productivity South Africa, and the UIF Labor Activation Programs, we will try to assist these companies to find sustainable solutions. It is also now clear that the impact of the worldwide lockdown and recession will be uneven. For example, by and large, the big tech companies are doing well, and this will almost certainly accelerate the trend towards the fourth industrial revolution, the 4IR, trends which were already long established, requiring different skill sets, different training, and different forms of economic organization. Commodities have not fared so well, especially with increasing calls for green sustainable solutions to take us into the aftermath of the pandemic. So this 4IR has become so important. And the pandemic, unfortunately, imposed this to us. That is the positive side of it. Whoever thought that would be seated today as Chaba and interacting, all of us, be it in government, be it in business, in our civil societies, everywhere, interacting and using this technology. And I think it's the thing for the future. Let me hasten to add that the 4IR should not be viewed widely simply as a technological process. It heralds a massive societal change with far-reaching implications for workers, their families, communities, and the global economy. Indeed, the International Labour Organization, the ILO, established a commission which reported last year to undertake a major research project into the very future of work. Without going into all the details, the commission concluded that if we are to avoid major social disruption, it's essential that technological changes, artificial intelligence, the digitization, be guided by the human-centered agenda for the world of work. This, together with the quest for sustainability, will clearly help set the agenda for the economy and the workplace in the years to come. Incidentally, the ILO Commission was jointly chaired by the Prime Minister of Sweden and our own President Ramaphosa. So that should provide some reassurance that at the leadership level, the government is already wrestling with not only the consequences of the pandemic, but also the fundamental changes in production and technology. So much so, so much for the big picture and the vision for years to come. I'm guessing that the short-term issues and challenges are of much greater immediate concern. So let me share with you what we are doing as the Department of Labor in the current lockdown. As the department with the oversight of the UIF, the Unemployment Insurance Fund, and the Compensation Fund. The other areas of funding alluded to in the brochure advertising this meeting fall under other department and competencies. Well, as much as I cannot speak for them, but I think I can point you into the right direction. The Solidarity Fund, you know, there's a big fund which has been created, is administered independently of government and business with the objectives of ameliorating the health crisis and its dire social consequences, supporting the most vulnerable individuals and communities, promoting solidarity among the South Africans. And for those seeking to register as suppliers to the fund, contact the website for further details. It's only fair that I point out that anyone seeking an unfair advantage during the present crisis should be aware of the powers of the Competition Commission, which has just reached 11 million rand consent agreement with the distributor of the PPEs for inflating the prices. But I must warn. We will have to watch. We will have to look at that fund. Who are the beneficiaries? And I'm arguing that the post-COVID political economy cannot be the same as the pre-COVID political economy. And I think we have to argue the SMMEs, the cooperatives, and mainly the companies which are running from the townships, which are running from the rural areas, must be the major beneficiaries from that particular fund. By the way, nobody will just give you that. You will have to fight for that. That's very, very important. We must talk about transformation. It can't just be like yesterday in a new South Africa. And we must argue, why should we continue importing these PPEs from China when our own people can be able to use their hands to manufacture these? I think these are the things which we have to think about. And this must go to the small businesses. The ITC, South Africa Futures Trust, the loan guarantees, these are under the Department of Trade and Industry. And I think in the various websites, you can be able to access those sites and be guided on how you are going to be able to access help from those funds. The small businesses support, that's the Department of the Small Business Development. Tourism support, the Department of Tourism. The tax relief, it's there under SARS. Let's come to UIF. This was and is our largest area of work in responding to COVID-19 and the lockdown. In launching the COVID-19 Temporal Employee Relief Scheme, or what we call benefit scheme, this required that we repurpose the UIF either to a standard insurance scheme which paid out, in proportion to the individual contribution, in order for the UIF to become a temporal but much broader social security safety net. Colleagues, you need to understand that if we had used the strict prescripts of the UIF, the majority of the workers were not going to be able to benefit. And because they do not have the proper credits, some of them, they have few years, they have been working and so on. We agreed that we're going to do an amendment. We had to negotiate at the level of NetLab, that we will start, even if people are having the credits which give them less than 1,000 rand, we will be able to say, let them earn the minimum of 3,500 rand. And we have been able to deal with that. But remember, this is a relief scheme. It's not the full salary. We're paying 38 to 60%. At the top, it's at the bottom, it's 60%. Those who are earning at the top, it's 38%. We have a particular formula which we are using in order to calculate. I can see a lot of people have been complaining. This required then that we change our operational model, to change our structures and systems from a walk-in system for individual claims, which would have overwhelmed the payment systems and led to mass queuing, compromising social distancing. It was very clear, and I must be honest, our systems were never ready for a convergence of large numbers of the workers. It was very clear that we're going to cause chaos. That's why we decided to do everything online, using the online system with mass payment hubs through the bargaining council and the employers. We said, no. We can't be talking about individual employers applying. In fact, we're having a toll-free number. We are having about 300 processors in that toll-free number. But you'll be shocked that all of them will be jammed at the same time. We're there to increase that number to 500. And again, they are still jammed because people want, they have queries, this and that. But I need to acknowledge the enormity of what was achieved by the officials of the department and the UIF working with the employers and the bargaining council, resulting in the payouts to additional 2 million plus workers, whilst maintaining the regular UIF payments as well. So the UIF achievements, by the end of the business on yesterday, May the 12th, the COVID-19 TEL scheme paid out 11.6 billion to over 2 million employees via some 162,000 employers. So we're using the employers, including the bargaining council, to apply because they have what we call the payrolls. They can be able to advance all that electronically and we do the payment. At the same time, regular UIF payments were maintained because there were people who were already claiming prior to that. And these are the people who were claiming their normal UIF because they were retrenched. There were people who were claiming their maternity benefits, their, what we call, some of them who were in the hospitals, they were claiming their benefits. And we have distributed to them 1.5 billion to about 138,000 unemployed workers. Remember, each beneficiary has a family or dependent. So the reach of the UIF is even greater, between 10 to 20 million affected. To apply for this COVID-19, test benefits, you go to the UIF website and follow the prompts. With fully compliant application, it now takes 24 to 48 hours to process this. And I need to warn you that the supporting helpline has experienced problems. I must be honest, due to the volumes of the calls, as I've indicated. We are currently working on this. COVID cares challenge. Of course, the major challenges come with non-compliant applications. Some 80,000 applications have been held back due to the following challenges: ineligibility of the application, errors in the applications or incorrect documentation, requiring SARS confirmation, and failed bank verification, where you find that these are the wrong bank numbers and they do not correspond with the name of the person. You don't know whether it's fraud, and you can't discount fraud in this environment because you're paying in large numbers and so on, and some people are chance takers. So I need to add one very important category where employers have been paid by the UIF and have not subsequently paid their employees. As a result, we have said, henceforth, whilst we continue to request employers to apply on behalf of their employees and to provide us with the payroll details, in future, the UIF, when we pay for this end of the month for May, because we had budgeted for the 3 months, but I'm not sure whether 3 months is enough. We might even be forced to go beyond, depending on the funds we have. We've said in future, UIF will make payments directly to the claimants. Generally, the non-compliant applicants are the employers and also some employees who have complained of non-payment. So every such application is now being individually investigated, and it's time-consuming, but it's a necessary process. Indeed, to achieve this, we're introducing the shift working in some of the offices. We are introducing that now people have to start at 6 to 2 and others go at 2 to 10. But if it's necessary that we add the third shift, we are going to do that. I also need to mention another challenge where employers have not assisted their employees to apply, and where the affected employees do not have access to the online facilities. We have placed the drop boxes at the labor centers, but this is not enough. It is for this reason that we have decided to open the labor centers to provide a focused service in such situations. So we're readapting our offices in order to be able to make sure that when people come, they queue properly and so on. And then there will be the staff in those labor offices, although they will not come, all of them, it will be a particular percentage in order to deal with the walk-ins, in order to be able to deal with those who cannot have or access to the online facilities. Sorry. The compensation fund is also anticipating increased demand from the claims or from the claimants who are quarantined or made sick by the coronavirus. To this end, therefore, the Compensation Fund has established its Crisis Management Committee and developed a COVID-19 response plan to focus on core compensation and occupational injuries and disease services. So like the UIF, the Compensation Fund has opted on the online applications for the protection of the claimants and staff and to streamline the processing and the payments. But up to now, we do not have large claims. You will understand that it's only now that people are going to start to be sick and going into the hospitals, and then we are expecting that the claims are going to increase. All along, it has been the drips and drabs, mainly from the Western Cape and KZN. The other service which we have is the inspection services, and I need to inspection and enforcement services. I need to also mention that the critical role played by our inspection and enforcement services, what we call the labor inspectors, in inspecting the workplaces and enforcing health and safety regulations during the lockdown. The labor inspectors have carried out over 3,000 inspectors, and the rate of the compliance by employers has increased from 50% to over 60% over the period of the lockdown. An average of 9 prohibition orders have been issued per day, leading to the total or even partial shutdown. Currently, there are 170 inspectors in the field, including highly experienced and qualified inspectors used to working with the hazardous materials. Provision has been made to employ additional 500 inspectors as soon as possible. The department is also looking to use accredited, registered inspection bodies to increase its reach. It would be impossible to inspect every one of the 1.8 million registered businesses. Therefore, inspectors may rely upon the support of the individual workers, the unions, the socially responsible employers to ensure greater self-regulation and compliance. So we need to also stress the role of the stakeholders in the workplace. The safety reps, the health and safety committees to lead the drive to raise the awareness and to change the behavior. As we moved into lockdown 4, I just need to mention the important role, which has been played by the Health and Safety Inspectorate in drawing up the regulations, which I announced last week, as conditions for partial reopening of the workplaces during level 4. These regulations cover the following, and this is very important. The need for all workplaces to conduct a risk analysis and draw up health and safety plans, daily testing for symptoms, the need to repurpose workplaces to ensure social distancing, the provision of the PPEs and hygiene measures, including the sanitizers. We cannot view these measures as over onerous. They provide the first line of defense against the spread of the virus. So the labor inspectors play a critical role in enforcing this. The CCMA and NETLEC, I just need to emphasize the role played by the CCMA and NETLEC in maintaining and strengthening the good labor relations. It is these institutions which will have to negotiate and manage some of the new labor relations difficulties which are going to arise. The brochure of this meeting mentions that some of them, the conditions of workers now working from home, for those who can work from home, this is likely to be the new normal. The challenges raised by the new ways of working, for example, in relation to performance or performance management and possible disciplinary issues, the very real possibility of increased retrenchment and as companies struggle to cope with the loss of income and markets. So the first point I would like to make in this, that existing labor relations remains in place, and this needs to be guided or to guide relations between employer and employees. The CCMA is already expecting a spike in retrenchment and disputes. It has long experience in dealing with these questions, and is gearing itself up for the workload ahead. Its offices are due to reopen on Monday, on the 18th of May. So the CCMA is already planning for these eventualities, adopting decentralized model to take the services to the people, going to workplaces to deal with the dispute, decentralizing the call centers, and looking for local venues to hold hearings so that parties do not have to travel long distances to access the services. So the department will assist where it can with the provincial and the regional offices and the labor centers. We may need to request additional space from other organs of government. Together with NETLEC, the CCMA has a major role to play in maintaining the healthy labor relations and industrial peace. With this in mind, as minister, I signed a direction on Monday to enable the staff and the representatives of the bargaining council, the unions, the employer organizations, the CCMA and NETLEC to carry out their work and deal with disputes unhindered by the lockdown regulations. Let me, Chaba, pause on that note and allow the questions.
Thank you very much, Minister. If you don't mind, you can open the chat box, or as I did indicate, I can read some of the questions back to you. Whichever
okay.
Is easy.
Somebody is going to help me. Somebody is helping me.
Okay.
Because I was forced by this COVID to start working on these things.
No problem. We'll be patient, Minister.
Hey, I read Albertina country. Do you want to read them, stuff?
I can read them for you, Minister.
Yes, please.
Nkululeko says, thank you, Minister and Chair. Why is the government only spending billions in short-term solutions rather than supporting businesses which will create jobs and sustain jobs? What is the labor plan?
Okay. I don't think we are doing that. We are faced with the crisis. The reality is that you are faced with a health crisis, you are faced with a pandemic, which can wipe out the population. And I don't think the government cannot be able to respond to that. And remember that when we decided to come up with a lockdown, a lot of people could not have the access to anything. And we had to respond. Otherwise, we're going to have a social unrest. That's the reality. Those are the short-term issues which we have to deal with. But moving from there, we need to talk about what are the long-term and, medium-term to long-term strategies which we are going to employ in order to grow the economy. But remember also, our economy was going down even prior to COVID. what those what you call them, the rating agencies did to us. So, but we need a long-term plan, and that long-term plan is going to depend on the stimulus package which we put in place and where are we going to focus. And I think at some stage we're going to announce that. But I know that my basic economics 101, when faced with such massive unemployment, infrastructure is going to be one of the key areas where we need to focus on. And we must also talk about how do we ensure that we have labor-intensive methodologies which we are using in the rural areas in the townships, especially in paving the roads in order to create the employment. But also, there are a number of plans which were put in place by the different departments to support also the MMEs because they are going to be the backbone of. So there's a lot which has been put in place, which is going to be announced.
Thank you, Minister. Like you said, some of the questions might be referred to somewhere else. Dumisani, for example, says, does the NCCC advisory panel have property and facilities practitioners? These players are enablers of business and in its return and should be advising the council.
No, I can be able to say we are looking at all the industries, including what you are mentioning. And I think there is going to be some concessions on some of the industries. And we are making sure that, we take a balanced approach when we're dealing with some of those sectors.
And I guess a follow-up there, just for clarification, Dumisani wants to know, does the new normal mean that we are abandoning our pre-COVID strategic intentions, such as transformation? I know you addressed this, but can you just hit it one more time?
There is no way that we're going to abandon transformation. And I've argued that. Just a simple example. How sophisticated is the manufacturing of the masks? Why did we have to order the millions of the masks from China? But it was linked to a number of things. Are we going to continue importing even things which we can be able to do on our own locally? I think the issue of localization, the issue of industrialization in our economy must not be rhetoric. It must be now. But the issue, you see, we must be honest, that despite the fact that politically we are in control, the reality is that the economy is still in the hands of the white people. And I think that is the issue which we will have to address. And that's what transformation is all about. Transformation is about what are we doing about those who are disadvantaged. And I'm not talking about set asides of 30%. That's nothing. That's nothing. We must talk 60%. We must go very high if we are serious about that. And if it was myself, I would have said, why not 60% for the SMME in terms of the production of the PPEs? So the transformation is going to be very central. And I think this is the time, and I think the president has said this is the time that we must utilize this particular period to transform our economy.
Thank you, Minister. Catherine Malwa says, how is the minister utilizing Black SMMEs to assist with inspections and support of essential services to continue operations in a compliant and sustainable manner? Opportunity to transform the health and safety sector.
Can you repeat that?
How is the minister utilizing Black SMMEs to assist with inspections and support of essential services to continue operations in a compliant and sustainable manner? Opportunity to transform the health and safety sector. That's from Catherine Malwa.
I think I've already answered that. When I was saying on inspections, we are relying on in-house staff. Opening up for the qualified for the qualified registered health and safety companies, we are going to do that. And I think that's when then we are going to be requesting and looking at what companies are there. And we will certainly support the black and the female SMMEs in that particular respect. We're very clear about that, including the companies for the disabled. And I can tell you that now in the department we have about 13 factories which are run by the disabled. They are producing the PPEs, they are producing the masks, and they are producing this linen for all the hospitals. We had an agreement last year with Minister Mutwaledi, and they are doing very, very well. So it's in the pipeline. But I think all of us must be innovative and do not just wait what is given by the government. We must all be innovative.
Okay. Thank you very much, Minister. Zenith is asking, in light of the obligations imposed to the employer, when employees contravene the COVID-19 changes, can this be regarded as misconduct when all corrective measures have been exhausted? Non-compliance of the rules of COVID-19, an example of social distancing, not wearing masks, etc.
You see, the responsibility of occupational health and safety, that's an obligation not just of the employer. It's equally an obligation of the employees. And all of us must make sure that we are going to cooperate, we are going to work together to stop the spread. If some people decide, therefore, to undermine that, you are correct. It's misconduct. It's misconduct, and if the what to call if people do not comply, it's there in the regulations that non-compliance to the occupational health and safety needs disciplinary procedures on both sides.
Thank you, Minister. Vincent is possible concerned that we are endorsing people manufacturing cloth masks, which we know do not protect people from the virus.
I'm not sure what Vincent is saying, because what the government has been announcing was guided by the health expert, was guided by the Minister of Health. We thought that the masks are able to do that particular protection. Coughing into your elbow, covering yourself, and so on, were the basic things we've been talking about. Washing your hands are the basic things. I don't know what else does the protection. I thought that it's coming from the experts. That's why it's everywhere in the world. Everybody is talking about the issue of the masks. I'm not sure where Vincent gets that.
I guess it's an opportunity for Vincent to somehow channel the science that can help us even further. I'm not sure which bodies, but this is an emerging science. So Vincent, if you can also help us there. Cyril is asking, I just want to ask if he still qualifies to claim UIF, even though he hasn't been working for more than 6 months. It's quite in the detail there.
Well, all we need to do is, you can't qualify if you have not been working for more than 6 months. But unless we know the reason behind that, it might not have been a reason caused or by the particular employee. It might have been the difficult issues caused by the employers, because we know that some of the employers are refusing to support the employees. A lot of documentation is needed. Maybe if there is a strong case, Vincent must what do I say? Write an affidavit, and we look at what the affidavit is saying. He can apply for the other package of the 350, the social grant, through the Department of Social Development.
Okay, thank you, Minister. Bulabatu Taba says, thank you, Minister. SMMEs are UIF TS compliant, but have been left out in the cold due to technical glitches. All communication points leading us to the departments aren't functioning. Our employees remain unpaid to this day, yet we are expected to continue contributing towards UIF. All we see are the billions in rent spent already, yet we are left out in the cold. My question is, will the employers who missed out on the April payouts be reimbursed later on? Is the department doing anything to fix the technical glitches to make it possible for employers to claim on behalf of their employees?
No. There might have been problems, and I can tell you a number of the people who have had the queries, we have discovered that some of them didn't fill in the forms properly, or they're running short of this or that document. Some of them, they call, they write the emails, we tell them that they must correct the information. I've had numbers of the people who have also left messages with me that, and small medium enterprises or small enterprises who have been able to say, no, thank you, we have resolved our problems and we had the queries and so on. But we know that there are a number of others who are there whose problems might not have been resolved. We are going to continue dealing with those problems until they are resolved. And the issue of them locked out in terms of the time frames, they are not going to be locked out. Even if those claims, everything is corrected next month, we will still pay them the outstanding amount. Let me also just explain something else. There are employers who have been deducting the UIF, but not passing it over, deducting it from the employees, but not passing it over to the departments or even to SARS. And there are those who have not been deducting the UIF at all. But what we have said, even if the employers were doing that, we're not going to punish the workers. But when they interact with us, those employers, as they apply, what we are going to do is we're going to make them sign the acknowledgement of debt. They will pay that as and when their company is running properly, is able to make money. We make arrangements of the payment. But they must apply for those workers. Once they sign that acknowledgement of debt, we are going to pay those workers what they are supposed to get.
Thank you very much. We are still with Honorable Minister Thulas Nxesi. The questions are coming fast. There are 32 messages waiting for me. And I apologize to everybody if I don't get to your question. And some of them are comments. For example, there is Mr. President who says, Minister, it's time for talk shops to stop. Come to the farming community. Let us show you how many jobs can be created. And in a very short space of time, agriculture can contribute immensely in the jobs creation. Have we missed the agriculture sector, Minister?
Have we?
Have we missed visiting the agriculture sector, as Mr. President asked here, to say, come to the agriculture sector and see how many jobs can be created?
No, but if you have listened, if we have been following the whole narrative right from the beginning, Minister Tokotitiza and the program, in fact, that's why, for that matter, there was never closure on farming. Even during the level 5, it was continuing. If you have listened to Minister Tokotitiza, the packages which she's putting in order to help the small-scale farmers and in order to deal with the land question. And you are right, the issue of food security is one of the most important things. But I think there is a package which has been put in place, which is going to be implemented. And yeah.
Thank you very much, Minister. James is pretty much saying, do your department have a plan to sustain jobs in the tourism sector? Are you engaging the big hotels on a favorable agreement to keep jobs for our people? I guess there is just ministerial discussions because the Minister of Tourism was on this platform. Do you want to comment on that, Minister?
Yeah, I must comment and also raise a very controversial issue. Farming, private security, tourism, especially the hospitality industry, the restaurants and the hotels. It's a very difficult catch-22 situation. We are in a predicament. When we're talking about mass unemployment, those sectors are employing 80%, 90%. Go to most of the restaurants, you find that there are 15 workers working there. 13 of them are the non-South African nationals, and only 2 are South African. And how do you deal with this matter? Because those are regarded as not high-tech skill jobs. How do you deal with that matter when those industries are doing that? And they are not doing it because these others are hardworking. They are doing it in order to exploit the cheap labor, to exploit these workers who are desperate, who can work very long hours. They are doing it in order to violate the rights, to violate the law, the basic conditions of employment. And how do you deal with that situation when you are also faced with massive unemployment in your own country? In fact, a lot of African countries in our own continent have pronounced that in some of those industries where the locals can be able to do the jobs, they are not going to employ the people from outside. But with us, because we are signatory to a number of international conventions at the ILO, at the UN about refugees and so on and so on. If people are here legally, they qualify, they have the right. But what these people do in these industries, they tend to employ those who are illegal, who do not have any documentation and so on. We think that this is an issue we have to deal with as immediately to deal with a migratory policy. That's a big area we have to deal with. But remember, as you were saying, the issue of tourism is very key. And I think it's still going to suffer. If you look into a number of countries, airlines have gone down because of COVID. For them to come back, it's going to depend on a number of the tourists which are coming back into our country. We're relatively doing well in tourism, but I think it's now dead. So it's going to depend then on what we're doing. And it's one of the issues which I think Comrade Kubai is dealing with. Tourism is one of the areas which we have said it must get a priority. But you can see that all the countries, it's going to take time for people to travel from one country to the other, given what has happened.
Yeah, I guess Dumisani makes the point, which pretty much talks to what you've said, that Minister, post-COVID, can we relook at our lax controls with regards to non-South African SMMEs, such as the Chinatown tenants, etc. And then the same point is being made by Catherine to say, Minister, what is your view on hashtag Put South Africa First movement post-COVID, particularly with regards to the Chinese businesses mushrooming everywhere and are evidently not paying tax? How are they getting permits? How is DOL impacting this space? I think you have covered that, unless you want to just say one more thing.
Just one more thing. But one of the things we have to deal with is corruption. Corruption in the public service, because some of these people, you might find that they have the permits, they even have IDs, but they can't even tell you what this is all about and so on. So corruption we have to deal with, because they are able to get these things through corruption. That's something we have to deal with. Oh, by the way, there was a court decision classifying the Chinese as qualifying in the BE. But I think They were talking about those who are naturalized. But I think the issue of people just coming, putting anything, it's like in the townships. Look at the spazas, which are there. They are not our own people. What are we going to do to help our own people in order to be very competitive in that particular area against these spazas which are there, against the Chinatown and so on, and also teach them to buy in bulk, and they work as syndicates, as others are doing.
Just a question here from Sia says, Minister, why will UIF pay the benefits for some employees but exclude some others, especially directors?
There's a particular formula which we're using, and if they've applied for, they will be able to be covered. But given the huge salaries which directors are getting, I don't think it's I don't want to, maybe lack of a better word, I wouldn't say it's worth going for it, but any money, no matter how little it is, it's always very important. But I think this is a relief in the main to the low level workers. But if they want to, they can. In terms of the law, they qualify.
Okay, thank you. Matume Mashal says, what is the minister's view about the apparent disparity between government employees and private company employees, where government employees get full pay whilst private entity employees have their salaries impacted? It seems the government has taken a blanket view to pay everyone, even when it has become clear that government is itself in a financial distress. Your opinion, sir? That's from Matume.
We have appealed to the employers where they can afford. They must pay their workers. Some of the private employers have paid their workers. Some, not all of them, of course. The majority of them have not. So those who can afford, some have paid them half. If you can afford and you have budgeted for it, why would government, if it has budgeted for it, not pay the public servant? We have budgeted for it, and we must pay for it. In fact, government is supposed to be exemplary.
And then Khatile says, Honorable Minister, please expand on the relaxation you have provided to the parties of the bargaining council to carry on their work. This is well received.
What we are saying, the leadership of the trade union movement could not be able to move to deal with disputes. You would remember that, especially in the supermarkets, as an example, there's been lots of disputes, and it was relating to the issues of occupational health and safety. And you're seeing the evidence of that now, because almost every day we are told about the numbers which are increasing, workers who have been infected, and it's happening in the supermarkets. Now, we took a decision therefore that in order for the legitimate leadership of those workers to be able to negotiate with the employers, in order for them to ensure that the employers are able to put the structures which we have said they must put in readapting the workplaces, I think the leadership in the form of the shop stewards, remember the shop stewards are the most important because they are on the factory floor. We must allow them to be able to move into the workplaces. And also we have said some of the things will have to be negotiated in the various bargaining councils where issues are being negotiated, because we promote engagement. And therefore we allow for all the participants in the bargaining council to be able to move. And we also said equally to the employers, they must have access to be able to move and engage in those bargaining councils. So the whole thing is to ease engagement, so that we're able to resolve a lot of disputes in an amicable way or mediate those disputes. That's why we've said the CCMA, they must be available to mediate those particular disputes, because before they become big disputes. But we're also anticipating that the disputes are going to be many, relating to one, procedural issues in terms of the retrenchments, even before you come to the substantive issues. Then instead of things just running into the courts where you clog the courts, it would be better that we try and use the structures which are mediating and dealing with those issues. That's the sense here. That's the sense here. But still, the general secretaries or the leaders of the companies are the ones who are going to be giving those permits, and they must do it in a responsible way. But once they abuse it, we'll be watching. We might even withdraw it.
We've got about 4 minutes with you, Minister. I'm sure an engagement like this and the questions do give you an opportunity to just reflect. While you are in the trenches, there are possibly some good things that you haven't had an opportunity to highlight that could have been lost in all the COVID-19 discussions. If you can just give us some hope and highlight some of the key things that have come or been done by your department, your ministry, yourself, that we need to be aware of.
I can't now because I'm already thinking about my next meeting, but this is what I am going to say. What is confronting us? I've already talked about the issue of the migration policy. We will have to do it together, and we must not be seen by the world to be xenophobic. Remember now, we are talking about trade, intra-African trade. We're talking trade with the SADC countries. We've signed agreements. And if we're talking trade, we're talking about the movement of goods and services, but including the people. So how we craft that migration policy is going to be very, very important. And secondly, the issue of transformation is going to be very critical now. This is the opportunity that we take this matter head on. In terms of our programs, in terms of what we must be biased towards those who are disadvantaged. In terms of funding, in terms of everything, we must be able to do that. But this scourge of corruption, we have to continue fighting it, because what corruption does, it steals from the poor. What corruption does, it destroys the good which we are trying to build. And we have to deal with all those issues. But one of the things which the comrades need to understand now, the president has given the line. No more territorialism, where departments want to work individually or like they are in competition. For instance, it's a must that the Department of Employment and Labor works together with the Department of Higher Education when it comes to the issues of training, including training for IR. We have to work together. And we have to work together as dealt together with social development. We have to work together with the small businesses. So what is very clear, cooperation and coordination, but that must not just be lateral in between the departments at the national level. It must also be between the levels of government. We must work together. We need to consolidate. But central to is what the president announced, the district development model. We must now go to the ground, into the district, and implement there. The programs must be there. The programs must be coordinated at that particular level. Coordination between the levels, coordinating laterally between the departments. I think that's going to be very important. We must continue engaging, comrades. We must continue engaging. This is a very nice forum. But what has excited me, Sharp, is that we can be able to have discussions using this thing. I never believed that the cabinet would work using this thing. I never believed that the Communist Party Politburo could work using this particular. I never believed it, but now it's working. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. Piers Given, as a parting shot, just wants to say, do not forget the pastors. Government is quite quiet there, and they too need to be looked after, given the lockdowns. Thank you to everyone that joined us live on our digital platforms, as well as everybody that came into the Zoom room to listen to Honorable Minister Thulas Nxesi, Minister of Employment and Labor. And we are so grateful, sir, for the time you gave us and the honesty as well as the passion that you answered almost all the questions that came your way. Looking forward to other engagements, and good luck with the next assignment that you have, which is a meeting immediately after this one. We are honored to have you, and thank you very much, sir. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.